Hello and welcome back to the show. Now, today I just want to get started here with the Fear and Greed Index. We have some very interesting things that are happening on the markets right now, and I think it's a very important time to be on the lookout for either a major bottom because the signals are telling us that we are getting very oversold here. We've had a short squeeze. We saw the Fear and Greed Index here at extreme fear about a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago, and now we're back up at fear. If we do go and tag extreme fear again, which I believe might happen because I'm still not convinced that the bottom is the bottom on the market. If we do go and tag it, then I think then we will, or at least we might get our bottom if the bottom doesn't just fall out of the stock market. So Fear and Greed Index at 35, let's keep that in mind. Moving on to the US 10-year here. So as you can see, the 10-year sold off a little bit, but it's currently still finding support surrounding the 10 and the 20 period moving average in this case. I told you that it's on every single time frame. When you start bouncing off of the 10 and the 20 consistently, and they're above the 50, and the 50 is above the 200 like it is now, you have what we call a bullish alignment of the moving averages. And this is basically, what you don't really want to go against the market as long as it holds above this 20. Usually now, if we're going to crash, you would see something like a dip back below the 10 and 20 here, maybe back to the 50, bouncing off of the 50, coming back up to the 10, to the 20, maybe as they cross, and then selling back up. Back down, going back down, breaking this 50 and going to the 200. Now, that's how a top would develop. We could also see the 10-year yield just, start dropping from here. But right now, there are no signs that it wants to go down. We do have a potential bearish divergence, that might be drawing itself out here soon. If we close at these levels, we'll get it on a closing basis between the highs from Friday, October 6th, which is last week. But, I think there is still a possibility that we go take out these wicks right here for the 10-year yield, kind of form a little topping process, which means that we would bounce around, maybe go around the 50 here a little bit, get back under it, back above it, back under it, back above it for a little while in a topping process. Now, that's what's happening with the 10-year. It's still going up. Keep in mind that the 10-year usually has a negative correlation with the stock market. So whenever we see this 10-year yield peak, then we'll be looking for a bottom surrounding that day here for the S&P. A lot of people thought it was maybe last week because they thought that maybe the yields had peaked. But it turns out that this week, as you can see, today we're already up 2.59%. Can we close that way? I don't know. We can still go higher. As I told you, nothing is bearish on this chart for now. So we'll be watching that very closely to see what happens. Next up, we have the Dow Jones Transports. Now, I want to show you the transports and the industrials here because that is what Dow theory is based off of. Right now, we do have a Dow theory buy signal here for between the transports and the industrials for the lows that we're forming right now and the lows right here from May. As you can see, the lows from May, the transports have not broken the lows from May. But when I go over to the industrials chart, the lows from May are right here. We're currently right at them. We didn't break cleanly below, but we've taken them, our wicks came up to them. So that to me is a Dow theory buy signal. Do I think that means the sell-off is over right now on the industrials? I'm not sure. We can't be sure until we see what really happens surrounding these moving averages. But for the time being, we do have a Dow theory buy signal. We're going to be watching to see how that develops. Maybe we get another one in the shorter time frame here, come down, make a new low or a higher low, in this case on the industrials, and we could come down and make a lower low on the transports because they're much closer to their low trend line. Now, keep in mind, transports are also back to a major trend line of support here. We call this a primary trend line in the daily time frame. We are back to this trend line, which is a major level of support. We've been selling off for a while. We still don't have any bullish divergences on the MACD for now. We could get one or we could not. We already got a bullish cross. That's really all the market needs in order to go up. Sometimes it forms a divergence when you have a very bearish move and the divergence draws out. But if it's not that bearish and we just get the bullish cross and just keep going, then the markets could go higher. So, oh wow. I don't know why I'm on a 1 minute chart on this one. But the US 2000, now I did give you an alert on Twitter when we were right at these levels. Exactly down here, I told you to be watching because we were at a critical level. And since then, the US 2000 has continued to rally. We got back above the moving averages, back above the 10, back above the 20. We started turning those from resistance into support. We sold off of the 200, and now we're bouncing off of the 50. And right at the open, because it's 3:35 in France right now, so the market opened 5 minutes ago, we are trying to rally up. If I take a look at the NASDAQ, well, we are going to get to the NASDAQ, but pretty interesting that at the open, the Russell is rallying and the NASDAQ is selling off. I did tell you, all right, so I'll get to that later. Let's just go ahead and take a look at US 500 for now. So US 500, which is the S&P futures, we did have, we did get rejection around the 10 and 20. Once again, we are back below the 50, so we'll be looking at the 200, which the S&P failed to tag in this first sell-off. We'll be looking at the 200. We also have this little trend line here that could potentially be a level of support. We'll be watching to see how we fare around it. We do have another trend line here. For now, as I'm saying, the chart looks more bearish than bullish to me at this point. Of course, it still remains bullish because the 50 is still above the 200 here. You know, it's not just, it could, but I mean, it's probably not just going to go straight down, even though since about right here, I've been calling for the market to get one more dip, one more low here before really putting in a bottom and capitulating everyone else. I think that's why I think that we might see the fear and greed index here move back into extreme fear as the market sells off and capitulates everybody out. The Russell, on the other hand, may very well have bottomed. What's going on? Okay, so my Russell chart doesn't really want to work, so we're just going to skip over to the US 100 because that is my favorite chart to trade. And what's going on? All right, so we got the US 100 right here. As you can see, we've been selling off here at the open, and I did warn you, I did tell you that this was an area where sellers would come back in. This was an area to maybe hedge and take some profits because we're coming back to the 200 period moving average in the hourly time frame. Now we're breaking below the 200 period on the hourly time frame, which is telling me that we probably want to go lower, probably going to take this level out. We're reaching the critical point of resistance. Critical is always situated, sorry, not a highlighter, I want a rectangle. Critical is sitting right around this area where the wicks are. We'll be looking to see if the NASDAQ turns. If we turn, then we can, you know, tell ourselves that we're probably going to take out this high. If we take out that high, probably going to take out this one, and then we might take out this one and continue going up. Now, if we do not start rallying off a critical strongly enough, if we come down here, just break it, or if we come down here, bounce just a tiny bit, you know, a little feeble bounce, maybe a little bear flag, and then can continue on lower, then that of course is bearish. So right now, the opportunities, if you follow me on Twitter at @the_bucket shop, you'll know that the opportunities came up here at the top of the wedge. I told you right here on October 12th in the morning, and then during the session, we tagged that level 2 more times for real, almost 3. If you move the trend line here a little bit, we tagged that level about 3 more times before starting the sell off. I told you to be watching for, you know, literally right around this area. I told you to be watching for a pullback back into the 50 period moving average on this 1 hour chart, and we did exactly that. That was another opportunity for the bears, in my opinion, not financial advice. And then once we got down here, this is where I told you, okay, now we've had 2 good moves. It's time to maybe take a little bit of profits out, you know, manage risk and lock in those gains. That's what we did. Market ended up going back up, right back into our critical resistance area. You could have released your hedges here. If you believe the market was still going up, then you could have kept your long positions. But, you know, I still believe that either we need to see a little bit more here to really be sure that the bottom is in which, in my opinion, would happen if we got to move too critical, basically a sell-off right to around this area, and then we turn, then I would say, okay, now we probably have a bottom. Or if we go down here and get a higher low. So higher low, lower low, which one is it going to be? For the moment, the moving average is still bullish on this chart. Maybe this is a fake off sell, even though it doesn't really look like it to me. We are getting a little bottoming tail to start off the session right above our critical level. So this is the area where you want to watch, but we are coming down here pretty aggressively. We're going to get the 50 that's going to cross back with the 200 here on the 15-minute time frame. So we'll be looking at that to see if we rally back into it. And then once that happens, do we find resistance, or, you know, do we just keep on going? I just do want to take a little look at the cash indexes, because it is very important to look at both. So for the time being, S&P 15-minute chart is bouncing off of its 200 period moving average here. Excuse me. And the NASDAQ on the 15 is below the 200. Back here, down here, On this day, I told you to be watching for a rally at these levels. This is why we talked about profit taking, because at these levels, we got a higher low under the moving averages. And that's usually a sign that you're going to go higher, if you end up like we did here, opening higher. Now we are back below the moving average. So now we're looking to see, okay, do we come up here and retest it? Do we get back above it, or do we just keep going? Right now, every single moving average is resistance here on the 15-minute time frame for the Nasdaq. It's going to be the same thing on the 5-minute time frame. And so on the cash index, we also just dropped right back to the 200 period moving average on the hourly chart of Nasdaq 100 cash here. So we're at a few levels of support. If we just break these, the next level of support, in my opinion, of course, would be surrounding these highs over here and this little low here. And I'm not sure that will hold, because if we keep selling off from here, it could get pretty bearish. Maybe we get a little sell-off, rally back into the 50, crossing the 200, and then get the real capitulation type move here, where everybody goes bearish and where we see another spike in the PCC and PCCE. If you remember correctly, I predicted a spike on the PCC and on the PCCE, a few days before we actually got the spike there and the bottom. So are we going to get another one? As you can see, PCC is climbing back up. And PCCE, let's see. PCCE isn't climbing back up that much. This is the data from yesterday, though. I think so. It's saying market open 10:55, but it's saying Monday, and I think today is Tuesday. So I'm not too sure what's going on there with the PCCE. Is that the same thing on the PCC? Yeah, so it's still yesterday's data. We're waiting to see what today holds, but if we keep selling off, I think we could get another big spike here. And these spikes usually mean bottoms are coming in, because this means that a lot of people are short. And that is when the short squeeze triggers and we get a move like we saw, 2 weeks ago with that massive rally that has a lot of people thinking now that the bottom might be in. I don't think that, much has changed for now. NASDAQ is looking more like a sort of a wedge rather than being this bear flag, but we could still get this bear flag if we break the level of support here from the wedge. I continue to have these levels on my chart because I think that there is a chance that we tag them. If we come down to this trend line, well, first of all, if we make a lower low, okay, we're going down to this trend line. If we break this trend line, then we're probably going down to the lower trend line. We do have a little level of supply here that we'll be looking at, but once again, no divergences here on the daily chart for NASDAQ on the MACD for now. We could crash to a new low, suck all the shorts in, all the puts in, get a higher low on the MACD, get the bullish divergence between the MACD and the markets, on S&P, on a lot of different markets here, even on Russell. We'll be watching how Russell fares around the 20 period moving average, but this might have been the last time the Russell touched these levels in a long time, because as I'm telling you, this is a critical level. Now the Russell is at multiple critical levels right now, so I think it's a very interesting chart to be watching. Maybe the S&P and NASDAQ didn't bottom with this rally, but maybe the Russell did. So we'll be watching that very, very closely here. Now, I also talked to you about Bitcoin. I just want to finish off on Bitcoin and Solana here for a second. Bitcoin, once again, still under the 200-week moving average. I think we're trying to get above it right now. I'm going to go ahead and put that onto a smaller time frame so we can see for sure. But right now, still under the 200-week moving average. We're having some crisscrossing going on with the moving averages. And right now, the 10 and 20 are above the 50, but the 50 is below the 200. So, classic sideways action here for Bitcoin, not really giving us any direction for now, but I think when it does, it's going to give us a direction that's very, very, very strong move, because we are surrounding the 200-week moving average. So as I promised, let me just go ahead. And also on Bitcoin, we don't really have much of a bullish divergence. We have this little stuff where we came back here, but this could and now we're even getting a bearish divergence. So I don't know, man. Bitcoin chart doesn't look too good for me for now. A cryptocurrency that looks a lot better to me would be Solana. Successfully called the bottom right here in September. We continued to rally because we thought that we had a little wedge pattern going on, and that is exactly what we had. Broke out of the wedge, never looked back, got above the moving averages, and now we're sitting right above the 200. Once again, 200-day moving average. And where are we? Solana doesn't really have a 200-week moving average yet, but we are at a confluence of moving averages here, and we are back above them. So they are this entire area from 21.15 to 21 to 20 is a major level of support, and if that breaks, then it's not going to look good for Solana either. As I promised, let me just go on a 4-hour chart of Bitcoin here so I can show you exactly the 200 period moving average and how we're, you know, kind of moving around it here. We got a very bullish move, but it was very, very quickly sold off there. You know, we came up to critical, we broke critical, but that didn't last, hardly even 10 minutes. I don't think it lasted even 15 minutes. So very important to watch what happens on Bitcoin. Let me just pull up the, not the McClellan oscillator, excuse me. Bitcoin, let me pull out the moving average. Boom. This is how you do it. If you want to set the 200 week moving average on any chart, go ahead and go to time frame, write down, boom, the length of your moving average, and there it is. So the blue line here, this new blue line, let me just take away these ones so you can see, is the 200 week moving average, the biggest level of support and resistance, that we're trying to figure out if it's support and resistance right now for Bitcoin. It's this blue line, and if we get above this blue line and can hold above it, then we probably going to get a massive rally here on Bitcoin, kind of like the market did, because the market bounced off of what? If I go back to the NASDAQ and I set up, boom, the 200 week moving average. As you can see, we went sideways around it, but then got rejection. And once we got back above it, we tagged it once right here, tagged it a second time in this sell-off, but literally a tag. I think we spent like 2 minutes there. And then we went up, and look at this massive rally since then. So now we've been going sideways for a long time. The move that's going to come after this flag right here is going to be very explosive, up or down. I do still think that US 100 is going to get a new all-time high here if these levels can hold, if we don't just break down and just go extremely low. Actually, if we do sell off to 12,000, not that that's going to happen, but I'm definitely buying the 200 week moving average once we tag it, but that's 15% away. So we'll really be seeing what happens here on US 100. I told you to be careful at these levels, and for now, well, we're continuing to sell off. We were correct in predicting the rally off of the 200, and in predicting that this critical area right here was the level of resistance. We perfectly got that area tagged there, and now we're turning back down on US 100. Make sure you follow us on Twitter. Let me just go ahead and show you what that looks like. My Twitter here, _bucket shop. I post daily market updates. You get live updates. This is me showing the zones that I was just talking about. And then, somebody finally voted on my poll. So thank you very much, whoever voted. This video is coming here for you. And, have a good one.